Hey, what's good? Zanita67, thanks for joining up. You know what time it is? About to get this thing started. Got about 3 minutes. Just getting myself situated.
Yo, those are nice. Hold on one second.
Candace, what's up? I think my daughter's going pro at basketball.
I'll take
Wait,
those.
you're at Dick's? Could you pick up an agility ladder for my daughter?
Yo, she's 3.
So what you
Thank
think?
Alright. One last message. And then we're gonna get started. Alright. I got that stuff out the way. Now let's get it popping. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Good to be back with you here on this Friday. We made it through, apparently. We're gonna have to do it again, though. Thank you for joining me for another Financial Fridays. I'm about to create my second My Player here live today. I'm gonna actually get some playing done today because I did the player card up front. So I'm gonna play and then I'm gonna fill in the player card later. So y'all just bear with me on that. I ain't gonna be the best player out here because obviously I'm starting from scratch. But so today we will be talking about assets and liabilities. We're gonna get a good grasp on this thing here for the audience of expansion pack, so we'll have some understanding on what it is. So I'm gonna start off with this video, Mr. Myron Golden on YouTube. It's 9 o'clock, so we gonna go ahead and start this thing off right. I ain't gonna hold it up. I wanted to start here at this specific spot because he said something that really moved me. So, all right, let's go.
Rich people, here's how we pay for things. Before I tell are y'all tracking? Okay, cool. So rich people, here's how we pay for things. Before I tell you how we pay for things, like, I'm gonna show you something. When you understand what I'm about to show you, for the rest of your life, everything will cost the same amount. Did y'all hear what I just said? For the rest of your life. Your car will cost the same amount as your house will cost the same amount as a bottle of water, which will cost the same amount as a pack of gum, which will cost the same amount as a first-class vacation. Everything will cost the same amount. Why? Because to rich people, everything costs the same amount. My cars, doesn't matter, Mercedes, Rolls Royce, whatever, costs the same amount as this bottle of water or this pack of Tic Tacs. All cost the same amount. Flying on a private jet from here to wherever I want to go, or drinking a bottle of water, pack of Tic Tacs, all cost me the same amount. Why? Because as a rich person, we pay for things. Write this down exactly as I said it. Do not translate it into your language, okay? Rich people, we pay for things according to our creativity. I'm gonna say that again. We pay for things according to our creativity. Notice I did not say we pay for things with our creativity. I didn't say we pay for things from our creativity. I didn't say we pay for things out of our creativity. Why? Because if I had said any one of those things, we would have less creativity after we paid for it than we had before we paid for it. So, if you're poor, buying things makes you poorer. If you're middle class, buying things makes you poorer. When you are rich, buying things, like literally buying things you just want to use, buying a new set of golf clubs, buying a new car, buying an island, buying a mountain, buying a plane, actually makes you richer. I'm gonna prove that to you in a minute. How many of y'all like the sound of that, but it sounds a little confusing, right? Okay, I'm gonna prove it to you in a minute. Okay, so here's what we do as rich people. We pay for things according to our creativity. When I wanna buy something, like I already told you, I don't wanna take some of my money that's over there having babies, I don't wanna take it out of the money maternity ward and go spend it on something, right? So what I do, I leave it in the money maternity ward. So I wanna go buy a new car, what do? I'll create an offer.
Yes, sir.
And I'll pay for the new thing that I wanna buy with an offer that I create. So for instance, I created this offer in 2006. See this offer right here? It's called From the Trash Man to the Cash Man, How Anyone Can Get Rich Starting From Anywhere. I created this offer in 2006. Now, I created this offer according to my creativity, but once I created it, it was done. Now all we have to do is let people know we have it, and then people come buy this. People come and buy this book from me every single day.
Shout out to Eckerman.
We don't sell a ton of them. We only make about $7,000 or $8,000 a month from this book. How many times did I write the book, y'all? How many times did I write the book? One time. How often do you get paid for it? Every day.
Yes, sir.
Why? Because I created the offer. This is an offer. I created it, wrote the book, told people this is what it'll do for you if you buy it. That's the offer. If you give me some money, I'll give you this book, and this book will help you never be broke again, because it'll teach you financial literacy, Myron style. Okay, cool. This book right here, I wrote this book in 2021. How long ago was that, y'all? 2 years ago, I wrote this book. This book makes me between $30,000 and $40,000 a month. This book, paperback book, 172 pages, makes me between $30,000 and $40,000 a month. Why? Because this is an offer that I created.
Yes, sir.
That pays for whatever I want it to pay for. Okay, right? Now, here's what's cool. There are different kinds of offers. So I had a really traumatic experience in 2022. Two of them that were really traumatic. One, I was going to Dallas, Texas to speak at a conference on American Airlines, nonstop flight. They lost my suitcase. I'm speaking at the conference the next day. Fortunately for me, when I travel, I always travel in a suit. So I had on a suit. But they lost my suitcase. Guess what my suitcase had in it? My suit, right? Okay, and they lost my suitcase. They said, oh, don't worry, Mr. Golden, we'll bring it to your hotel tonight. It never showed up. Next morning, I called, no, we can't find it. Literally, I filled out paperwork when I got to the airport. When I got back home, I had to fill out paperwork again. They called me 2 months later and said, hey, if you don't come, we need you to come back and fill out this paperwork. We can't find your bag. Like, if you fill out the paperwork, we may be able to find it, but if you don't fill it out, you might not ever see it again. I said, well, I'm never going to see it again because I'm not filling out any more paperwork. Y'all have already wasted most of my life. And see, I believe that time is not money. Time is infinitely more valuable than money. And you've already wasted my money by throwing away my suit and my suitcase and my biohacking stuff and everything that was in it. So I'm not going to let you waste any more of my time by me filling out a paper to get a suitcase with a suit in. I'll just go buy another suit. I'm not doing it. Then 30 days after that, my suitcase shows up on my front door and there's mold on my suit. So that was like, we will inconvenience you airlines at our convenience airlines. Number one, strike one. Now the next one was on my birthday. My son, who's also an entrepreneur, he rented a yacht for me for my birthday, for me and my family to go out on a yacht on a Sunday afternoon. And I was speaking at an event in Cincinnati and I was flying on Southwest. We will inconvenience you at our convenience airlines. And we will not even attempt to make it up for you. And they canceled, like the first flight, there was something wrong with the plane, so I was gonna miss my connecting flight. So I'm going to get back home at 4 o'clock, but the yacht's leaving at 1 o'clock, and my son's already paid for it. That's not happening. So I had to go buy new tickets for me and my whole team. I think it was about $7,000 worth of tickets I had to go buy. And then came back home, made it in time for the yacht. But on that flight, on Delta, we will inconvenience you at our Convenience Airlines. On my way home, I said, I will never do this again. I will never fly commercial again. I made that decision. I had never flown private. I had never looked at flying private. I didn't know how much it cost to fly private. I just knew I wasn't flying commercial no more. I'll walk to Las Vegas. I'll walk to Los Angeles. When I ain't getting on another one of y'all airplanes, I'm done. I'm through. It's a wrap. Y'all ever get fed up with something? Well, I was fed up. So I thought, I had a trip coming up in 2 weeks. I thought it's going to cost, I don't know, $25,000, $30,000 to fly to Las Vegas for me and my team, go do this event. I'm going to make a couple $1 million anyway. It doesn't matter. I'll pay $25,000, $30,000 to go fly to Las Vegas. So I called my friend Gary. He has access to a jet, and he's a pilot. Hey, Gary, you're the only guy I know that has a jet. I'm not flying commercial anymore. Can you help me get a jet from Tampa to Las Vegas? He said, yeah, but it's going to cost about $60,000. I said, it's going to cost how much? And then he said something to me that changed my life forever. He said, yeah, you got to put your big boy pants on if you're going to fly private. I said, I only have big boy pants. Get the jet. Right? I had an attitude. Now I got an attitude, right? So anyway, so I flew to Las Vegas. At that event, I met a guy who owns a charter jet company and found out that I could buy a jet card, 50 hours of private jet time on a heavy-duty private jet, G4, like that'll hold anywhere from 9 to 14 people for only $11,000 an hour. $550,000, I can fly 50 hours. So it's $11,000 an hour. I'm like, sign me up. And we got light jet card too if you just want to fly to Atlanta or Miami, and it's $275,000. Okay, sign me up for that too, right? Now, what did I do? Did I take money out of the maternity ward to pay for that? Oh no, baby, that money is busy over there having them babies. Y'all, you keep having them babies. You know what I did? I created an offer. Remember I said we pay for things according to our creativity? I created an offer for high-level entrepreneurs who are stuck at $200,000 a month, $300,000 a month, $500,000 a month, but they're smart enough to know that even though they're making that much money, they're stuck. And I created a $200,000 VIP day. They get to spend the day with me for $200,000. Okay. Guess what? In June, I sold 2 of them. In October, I sold 16 more. That's $3.8 million. I spent $1.7 million on private jet cards that year. I got paid $2.2 million profit because I decided to fly private. And that's what I mean when I say when rich people buy stuff,
yes, sir,
we get richer. Because I created the offer. I spent the money, I made the money from the offer. I spent the money from the offer, but I still had the offer.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
all right. So, welcome to today's episode of Expansion Pack, y'all. I'm your host, Dan F. Man. Glad to have y'all tuned in with me. So, that right there was Mr. Golden, and he was telling us just a little bit about assets and liabilities. Now, those are just words, unless we go on here and we define them. And the way that we define them today is by actually exploring what we would call assets and liabilities, and defining what it is that we're doing when we spend money or when we gain either of the two. So let me get another one queued up for us real quick. Let's see what he got to say. It's Ross.
How's it looking over there?
Great.
Let me
you're actually involved in educating the process.
Yeah, without a doubt. I gotta show you. Every day I'm hustling from the day we came in the game, and we still are. And there's so much more to do, and I won't be satisfied until I've done something that's never been seen.
Check.
Good, my guy. How you?
Welcome to the promised
What's going on, boss? Everything
To
good?
the promised land. Everything good.
Yeah.
Everything wonderful.
Thank you for the
Everything
hospitality.
wonderful. It's too easy. What's up, brothers?
Good, brother. How you?
We blessed, baby. We blessed.
That's it.
We here, long as we here. As long as we here, you know what I'm saying? It's only right. Welcome to the promised land. Toast to all the hustlers, you know what I'm saying?
The last time we met, we was on stage together.
Yeah, we was on stage.
In Miami.
Yeah, him 500.
Yeah. Magical moment.
Yeah.
So, let's just,
Very magical moment.
it's gonna make some more history.
That's my boy. I told him to pull up today, but he couldn't make it.
He getting some money somewhere, you know what I'm saying? That's a good thing.
You already know that.
As long as you staying busy, stay busy.
That's a fact.
Stay busy.
That's a
You
fact.
ain't got shit to do, make up something to do.
That's a bar.
Yeah.
I got here, I thought
So are the people that are buying all that he is creating moving ahead financially, or are they staying in the same or getting poorer? I am not sure. I can't even address it. What I will say is this: it's an exclusive club. Being rich, and anybody can get into the poor club. That's why so many people there. And I think that what any rich person is selling, if they are selling you something to help you get rich, it's only a mindset that they can really give you. It ain't a product, it ain't a shirt, it ain't nothing but the mindset that they could give you. And so are they getting richer, or are they staying the same, or are they getting poor? I think it's really determined upon them, because he can only give them the mindset, give you the books, give you the information, give you the educational tools to arm yourself with. But rich is bigger than money. But let's keep on going with that. Maybe all they're selling you is a dream, and I can dream for free. Right. That's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm actually saying to you when I say ain't nothing they can do. They just getting you the game. Let me just keep on. Let me stay on topic. What's good, Copeland? Kiera? What's good? I was about to say key to the streets because I'm used to calling everybody by their screen name. But what's good, Copeland? Good to see you stop through. Thank you for dropping in to Expansion Pack today. All right, so I'm going to keep this video running for right now.
Palace of Versailles. You always hear about the Palace of Versailles growing up, and I'm like, this is like our Palace of Versailles. Like, it's like a destination.
Yeah, it's a moment.
Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why not?
Exactly.
Put a little spin on it, call it El Palacio.
It's crazy. Like, you hear the stories. I watched the horses as I came in. I remember when you was in the trees, looking down at the whole landscape. So it's like, it's incredible. And then the lake in the front. I'm like, I remember you telling us that. I'm like, wow, this is actually happening in real life.
I actually had the lake dug up.
Right.
Took out everything I ain't want so we could refill it up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Put the fish in that we want, so we could pull out exactly what my mama want to eat. You know what I'm saying?
We'll save all of this for their fish.
Some people seem born to be leaders, but that's not how it works. Leadership takes practice, and discipline. It's not a
That's what's up. Y'all go out there and y'all be leaders, all right? All right, so I'm gonna fast forward through something.
Well, we are, but I just want you to take a seat. You're like standing up, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's how you get the best out of Rose.
I thought that chair looked real comfortable, so.
Oh, it is. But the position I'm in, it could be.
Thank you for having us, man. It's very inspiring. Thank you.
Oh, man, you guys earned it.
Yeah. Let's get the numbers right. We got 235 acres. We got
No. That's when we bought it.
when we bought it, but we
Yeah.
extend. We're gonna get to the extension. of it.
Yeah. We done it.
Yeah, we're gonna get the 87 in there.
Yeah.
We got 109 rooms. We got 12 bedrooms, 21 bathrooms, and a plethora of other things that's going on. The largest swimming pool in the United States.
The biggest residential pool in the U.S. Drake and Kanye can invite if they ever met.
They can't compete with this.
All of them.
But let's get into the rose. So, our slogan, assets over liability, that's what we live by. So what is an asset? What is a liability to you? Like, how do you define an asset? How do you define a liability?
I'm gonna be honest. I think depending on the role you play and who you are, what's a liability for one brother could be an asset for another. You understand? Let's say me owning a private jet, 15 passenger. Let's say if it was $5.5 million. For one individual, that could be a liability. But the position I'm in, it could be an asset. And not just based on the money I get or my salary, but the individuals that surround me that I know would also lease this jet when I'm not using it. You know what I mean? So it's money we could get. We could take care of the maintenance, the pilot, the steward, everybody based on letting, another dude or two make a move once or twice a month.
Yeah, that's very fitting because the way you acquired the property, it was somebody's liability, right? It was foreclosed. JP
Most
Morgan
definitely.
owned it, and then you came in and purchased it. But a lot of people don't understand the liabilities that come with having an estate of this magnitude. So what are some things and some costs that people may not be aware of that it takes to maintain this?
Just simply the air conditioning. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Your light bill, homie, your AC bill here. You can't fake that.
That's not gonna be.
You know how
out.
the youngsters say cap, the cap.
Yeah, I mean, but
You can't cap that. This shit is real.
so where we from, like the AC bill might be $500, but we're talking about something like this. So I know there was some reports that it takes $1 million just to maintain this on a yearly basis. What are some of like those costs look like?
Man, I'm gonna be totally honest. Rose don't even get to see the cost. The way my team's set up, and that's really between my mother and my sister. The way that get handled, when we begin the year, it's simple as my sister may let me know, your residency or what you doing with this individual covers the expenses for living for the entire year. Everything else right there is that's cushion. I call that confetti. That's like being in Club Live at 3 a.m. Poof. It's just falling. And I love to look up and let the dollars hit me in the face. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's easy. You know what I'm saying? When I first moved into this spot and we first got it up and running, that's before I fully moved in. I saw, light bill 17K, 18K, that ain't nothing.
Yeah, I think one of the liabilities too, and I think you kind of flipped it to being an asset, was that you saw that there was some debt in the landscaping, right? There was some, I think, $500,000 in debt for landscaping, and according to you, were like, hey, I can cut the costs. I can mow the lawn myself, which led you to get into John Deere and saying, all right, we're gonna cut costs, we'll do it, and also allowed you to provide jobs. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Most definitely. That's basically how I look at everything around here. When you see my homies, the ones that's driving me, these are dudes that's from my hood. These are dudes that's from my community. And like I tell my dogs that surround me, you're not just gonna get rich being next to me doing one thing. You gotta be ready to do 5, 7, 10 things. So whatever you did in the hood, that's cool. You was respected for that, but over here, we gotta do this, we gotta do that, we gotta do this. So when I get out there on that John Deere tractor, we all out there. We cutting grass, we doing everything that needs to be done. And for me, it's better to remain hands-on. I want to remain hands-on because you're really paying yourself. Remain hands-on, you get to see things from a whole different perspective. You know what I mean? Walking into your chicken restaurants and actually sweeping, learning how to cook the chicken. I could whip up a mean 10-piece.
You know what this reminds me of? Nipsey Hussle, when rest in peace to Nip. He was saying that in his early stages of his career, he did everything from engineer to produce. So he was like, during that process, when the engineer told him something wasn't possible, he said, it is possible because I did it. So if you can't do it, get out the seat and I'll do it for you. And he was like, that really helped him in his journey because there was no part of the process that he didn't actually do himself. So nobody could pull a fast one on him, or nobody can tell him this can't be done, because he knew that it could be done because he actually did it.
Oh man, it makes you masterful. Imagine creating a film. You wrote the film, produced the film, directed the film, edited the film, distributed the film. Can you imagine the process in which you learn doing that? It takes you to a whole nother level when you're in a room full of other directors who could be great directors, but it's a whole nother vision, it's a whole nother insight when you actually hands-on.
Let me ask you this. Financial literacy, something that's popular now, but it wasn't always popular, especially hip hop. You know, when did you realize, okay, I'm gonna actually turn some liabilities into assets? I need to actually boss up and actually look at this from a real business, and it's not just entertainment. It's not just get a bag and just blow the bag. Like, when did you really have that transition, or was you always on that type of time?
I can't say I was on that type of time at all times, but most definitely as I progressed, as I elevated myself, as my finances grew, I understood what was at risk. And your whole approach changed once you have more things at risk. The same dude that you see right now that only got a box Chevy that's riding up and down the street, he a totally different person when he got $5 million at risk. You understand? So, you know, as I grew, as I moved on, you know, where I'm from in Miami, one of the homies that I looked up to and one of the ones that inspired me the most, he actually was featured on America's Most Wanted. He's serving 3 life sentences right now, and I still have, you know, I still see a day of him coming home. We ain't give up yet, but when I speak to him, and I ask him for advice as well, big homie, what's one of the things you wish you could have changed? And it's a dude that's been accused for over 80 homicides. And one of the things he told me was, Rose, I wish I would have learned to give a pass. That's something I never knew how to do, was give a square pass, give a mark a pass. If you did anything out of line, it wasn't no pass. So you understand? When he was 26, being featured on America's Most Wanted, that's one thing. But now when you're older, you realize my life was at risk.
Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, something that was Dane was telling us about that. He was like, you know, now at this point in his life, he realizes that it ain't even really worth it a lot of times. And I feel like that way of thinking not only can save your life from being dead or in jail, but financially as well. It's
Most
like
definitely.
You in that moment and you realize this may make me feel good in the moment, but if I put this money into real estate, if I put this money into stocks, I'm gonna feel good forever.
It's not even a comparison. If it's something that I admire, if it's something I want, if I wake up and say, yo, I want to call Jacob and get that $3 million watch, we get it. We in that position now.
Right.
But when I'm grinding and I'm climbing up the mountain, and it's either we could go to Vegas and spend $500,000 this weekend, or we get a piece of real estate. It ain't even nothing to consider.
Yeah, I feel
I'm gonna
like
get the real estate.
That was your mindset earlier, because I mean, in your book, Perfect Day to Boss Up, you mentioned that. You talk about how I didn't spend my advance, I didn't spend $1 from touring until I saw Port of Miami hit the charts the way it did.
Right.
After that moment, did the mindset change? I'm like, all right, let's spend some little bit of bread. What happened then?
Well, I said to myself, this shit real. Let's do some investments. We're gonna most definitely enjoy it. Let's go get that Lamborghini you always wanted. Squeeze your fat ass in that car, boy. You know what I'm saying? Squeeze your fat ass in that car, boy.
Custom Lambo.
You feel me? But most definitely, it was still, let's take it to that next level. Because we've seen this. Honestly, am I impressed? There's very few things that's going to impress me because we've seen this. And if it's something we've seen, I mean, I can applaud you, brother. But that may be the most I could do because we've seen this. So, you know, the goal is let's do something we've never seen. That's what's burning the fire within me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we got some goats that's ahead of us that still can inspire us. But if it's something I've seen, all right, it's cool.
Also, speaking of something that you've seen, my mom always used to tell me, she said, a smart man learns from his mistakes, a wise man learns from the mistakes of others.
Yes,
So it's like we also have seen a lot of entertainers, athletes go broke.
Without a doubt.
Was that something that was like scary to you?
Of course. Every time I come through the gates, I say, damn. The homie that, you know, owned this previously before me made 50 million a night. 550 million plus came through his hands. What's gonna separate me from the mistakes homie made? And I began going down my mental list. Well, this is what I'm gonna do different.
Yeah, your man cave has to step up. You gotta step your man cave up at this.
Yeah, that is a fact. My man cave ain't looking good.
Who knew Ross had every Marvel and DC character ever created? Don't let that go over your head. Who's your favorite character?
All right, so I think the big. What's up, O? Sorry if I ain't shout you out sooner than that. So the difference is once you put a description to what each is, like, all right, you got in one zone, you got your liabilities that are da 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 da, and then in the other zone you have your assets that are da 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 da. You see what I'm saying? Once you define what those zones are, then I feel you can get that better picture. Otherwise, you're gonna be like, oh well, I don't even really know what I'm doing. I may feel like going and blowing this money on something that I really don't need is what I should be doing. So you ain't even got the definition. So forget a retirement plan and an IRA and all of that stuff. That stuff you can't even get to that stuff when you don't have a definition of what's helping you and then what's harming you. So let's look at some more. Let's listen to my man's.
Picture
No worries,
this.
I
You're
ain't
sitting at home
doing
alone
this.
watching
Yeah,
YouTube
we are.
videos,
I
wondering why
always
you
like
can't find the
Fridays, I
motivation to
promise.
do the things you
Because
need or
these-
want to do or
some of
change in
these
the
talks
Every
are
day that you
exactly
say
what we talk about all the time, but hearing it again in a concentrated form is like it's packed full of nutrients.
Sound like the goal, but you'd created these really this. Welcome to the show, Jaspreet Singh. Jaspreet, thank you for doing this.
Wow, Jay, what an introduction, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate being here, and thank you for the opportunity.
No, I'm so grateful I get to have this conversation with you. I was just saying to you offline that one of the things I really appreciate about the way you talk about wealth when I was watching your channel and hearing your work was that I realized that money wasn't an obsession or it didn't sound like the goal, but you'd created these really healthy habits around how all of us, no matter what our financial situation is, can create really a deep, meaningful connection to our wealth and finances. Would you say that's fair? How does that sound? You can totally disagree with me too.
100%. I mean, the things that I grew up learning just didn't make sense because growing up, my parents are immigrants from a state in India called Punjab. And I saw my parents work their butt off. My parents came to this country with very little. And growing up, if my dad had a Saturday and a Sunday off, it was considered a long weekend. So he was working long hours every day, on weekends, all the time. And at the same time, they would say, you need to study hard so you can get a good job and become successful. And at the same time, they would also say, don't worry about money, don't stress about money, don't talk about money because money's bad, money's taboo, money's evil. And something didn't make sense because even as a kid, I had this entrepreneurial bug where I was like, I want to do something different. I started by mowing my neighbor's lawns, and my parents were like, don't do that. Don't worry about trying to get money by doing that. Just study hard to become a doctor. And I was like, well, something's not making sense because on one hand, you're working your butt off to get paid. And on the other hand, you're talking about how money is bad, how you shouldn't talk about money. As I went through this like emotional and kind of a tough financial education journey, I realized that the reason why so many people create this smokescreen taboo culture around money is because we're insecure about our money. And the reason why is because we don't understand how money plays a part in our lives. Money is just one part of our lives. You're right. Money is not going to make you happier. Money is not going to make you a better person. Money is not going to make you a good person. However, if you don't have money and if you don't understand money, well, that lack of money can impact your mental health. It can make you stressed, anxious, depressed. It is one of the leading causes of divorce. If you don't have money, you can start eating bad. You can't afford healthier food. You can't have the right gym membership. You don't have time to take care of your family. If you don't have money, you can't buy your spouse that nice vacation that they keep asking about. You can't take care of your kids the way that you might have wanted to. You can't give your kids the vacations. You can't give your kids the opportunities that maybe you want. Maybe you can't even buy the healthcare that you want because the reality, and this is, unfortunate or fortunate, the reality of the way the system is money talks. And if you don't understand money, then you're going to be at the mercy of people who have money. And this is where I had to understand how money plays a part in my life. Because I came to something that I call the quadruped theory. And the way that I put it is there's 4 aspects of life. If you want to live a happy and fulfilled life, you have to be healthy in these 4 aspects. First, you have to be physically fit. Second, you have to be mentally fit. Third, you have to be spiritually fit. And fourth is financially fit. And the way I put it in this order is because physically, if you're not physically fit, if you're morbidly obese, you're on your deathbed, it doesn't matter if you have $10 million. The only thing you care about is being healthy again. Second, mentally fit. If you are depressed, if you're anxious, if you are not surrounded by people that you love, if you're not happy, having more money is just going to make you more miserable. And this is a big misconception out there where I know people in my own personal life, I'm sure you do too, where people are like, if I just make $1 million, I'm going to find the love of my life. I'm going to be liked. People are going to want to talk to me. You start to imagine this world where money is going to solve the mental aspect of your life, but that's not the case. It's its own aspect. So more money will not make you mentally happy. Then there's a spiritual aspect. And this doesn't have to be religious. This is your purpose. For me, it's what is the reason why you're on this earth? What are you waking up for every single day? If you don't have a purpose, you're not going to have a reason to get out of bed no matter how much money you have. After you have the physical fitness, the mental fitness, the spiritual fitness, that's where the financial fitness has the biggest impact and the most power to help you live the most fulfilled life, because now money is just the icing on the cake, man. It allows you to live a more fulfilled and a happy life because now you can do more of the things that make you happy. You can give more. You can buy more food for homeless people. You can do more things that give you happiness. Maybe it is writing books. Maybe it's traveling. Maybe it is giving. Maybe it is starting businesses. Whatever it is for you, you have the resources and the ability to do that. But that requires you to have that financial education and be willing to now go out of the way to talk about money and learn about money and understand that, hey, money is something that I need to understand. Money is something that I need to be willing to talk about. Money is something that I need to be willing to learn about, because most of us are never taught to think about money, myself included.
Yeah. I mean, I love that thesis, and I would agree with you, because I had similar rhetoric in my language growing up. So when we talked about money, it was, we always had just enough. So I grew up when I had zero in my bank accounts on plenty days. And that was just, we had just enough. Or we often talked about money as if we went to a place where someone had a nice home or someone had a nice car, the conversation would be, oh, well, that person does some sketchy stuff. Or they must have done something that was stabbing someone in the back or causing someone pain to be in that position. And so you start creating this very negative, toxic view towards money. And like you said, at the same time, you need
Hey,
access to
what's
it.
up, Larry?
Have you
Barry,
ever
man,
figured out what it
appreciate you
was
for tuning in.
for your parents that you think created that disparity in their relationship with money? Have you ever probed that? Have you ever understood that? Because it comes from somewhere, right?
Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing. You know, I think across the Indian culture, my parents are from a state in India called Punjab.
Yeah.
Culturally, you know, money is just one of those things, like even in my culture, my religion, like there's this concept called kirat karo, which means earn an honest living. Now, many people have interpreted that, you know, in many different ways of, oh, don't worry about money, don't talk about money. And in the Sikh religion, there's also this big concept of seva, which means selfless service, giving back. And so there's this kind of like real giving aspect, which is great. And I agree with. But many times we overlook the idea of, how about the earning aspect? How do we earn? How do we take care of ourselves? Because the way I look at it is, if you want to be able to fill somebody else's cup, you want to feed somebody else, you have to be able to feed yourself first. And this is a lesson that my grandfather taught me. My grandparents are immigrants, or they were refugees before they came and lived with me. They were refugees because the state of Punjab used to be much larger. 1947, the state was severed. And if you were a Sikh and you were on the west side of Punjab, you had to migrate east, otherwise you were going to be killed. And it was a very brutal, very rough, very like bad time. And my grandparents were on the west side. And so immediately they had to leave their homes, leave their lands, leave family members, leave their friends behind, and migrate and run east. My grandfather, I heard this story a lot, and he actually just moved back to America. But when he started the migration process, the process moving east, all he had was a sword in his hand and the clothes on his back. Nothing else. Left all the money, left all the land, left everything behind, even left his parents behind, and started running. And during that process, he got attacked by a mob. And he had to defend himself, and he saw his uncle get killed right in front of him. His uncle got a knife, a sword right to his head, cut his head open in half. And that was the last time he saw him. And now he comes over to the new east side of Punjab, the new India. He lost his shoes along the way, doesn't have a home, doesn't have any family, doesn't have any friends. He's here just trying to figure it out himself, and now has to figure out, how do you make life work? And what he tells me from that time is, poorness is the worst disease. And the reason why is because when you're at that level of poverty, that level of poorness, you can't even think about feeding somebody else. You can't think about helping another person, because the only thing on your mind is, how can I feed myself? How can you feed your family? When that's the only thing that you're trying to do, you can't worry about feeding other people. And that's where, you know, for me, it was, I want to become successful so I can give back to my family, to my parents, give back to my community, and be able to do more things. Money at its core is just a tool. It allows you to do more of the things that you want. If you give a good person money, they have a tool to do more good. If you give a bad person more money, they have a tool to do more bad. So money, at the end of the day, it's just like gasoline. It amplifies whoever you are, which is why we need more good people with money. So now going back to your question of why, I really think it's just a lot of insecurity. You know, if we feel like we did everything right, we're working hard, but we don't have what somebody else has, something must be wrong. They must have done something bad. They must have done something that, you know, we didn't see. So we create excuses, we create smoke screens. But the thing that we don't understand is the financial education aspect, because that is the thing that can make or break your finances. It does not matter how much money you make, what degree you have, who your parents are, where you went to school. None of that matters. It's what you do with the money you make. And this is one of those things that it can be very hard for you to understand unless you actually see it. I was actually just reading a study last week. It said that 7 out of 10 Americans across the board are living paycheck to paycheck. And then it said that 50% of Americans, or just about 50% of Americans making 6 figures or more, are also living paycheck to paycheck. The majority of Americans across the board, doesn't matter the income, are broke. They have little to no savings. They have little to no investments, regardless of how much money you're making. And the reason is not just because of what salary or job or what degree you have or who your parents are, but because of what financial education you have. And none of us are taught a thing about money, which is the craziest thing.
Yeah, I really appreciate you going in that direction, because I think everyone thinks that when we do have a conversation about money, because of our conditioning, it has to be this obsession or it has to be this goal. And you're like, well, actually, it's just about education.
Yeah.
It's just about, you have to make this thing. and you're going to do something with it,
Right.
we better learn how it goes in and goes out and where it goes. And even for me, I'm reflecting on my own experience. I interviewed my mum recently, not on the podcast, and I want to do that. But I interviewed my mum recently at a dinner. We were at a dinner for my sister's birthday. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to interview my mum like a podcast guest.
Yeah.
At dinner. And so I started asking her questions. I was like, Mom, like, how did you get your first job? And like, especially I find like Indian, South Asian parents, they don't really talk about, I don't know, at least mine don't. They don't talk about the struggles they went through or the hardships or
You never talk about the problem.
You never talk about the problems. And so I was asking my mom. She told me that she was from Yemen. So my mom was born and raised in Yemen. She speaks Arabic. Unfortunately, she did not teach me, but she's of Indian descent, an Indian origin. And in Yemen, there was a war going on between the people of Yemen and the Brits, because the Brits were in control at the time. So my mom said she was studying for her exams while there were Yemeni soldiers on her roof, trying to protect Yemen, and they had to study for their school exams. And like, that's what she was going through. And so, and then when she moved to London, she kept her British passport by moving to London at the time because Yemen got its independence. They moved with like £8, which is like $10. Like, you know, and at that time that's not bad, but it's, I mean, that's practically nothing. And of course they built up from scratch and, you know, for themselves did really well. But the idea still comes to, we have no financial education.
Yeah.
What are, if you could start with, and we'll dive into each of these deeper, if you could tell me what are the 3 habits that keep us in that poor or poverty mindset, as you said, and what are the healthy habits that bring us into the wealthy mindset?
Sure. So the 3, I think, biggest bad habits when it comes to money. First, probably the most obvious, I would say, is people following the 2 S's, where you're spending or saving all of your money. You'll never become wealthy if you do that. Number 2 would be you blindly follow the system without questioning the way the system works. And number 3 is you don't understand how money works. So if we start with number 1, the 2 S's, save and spend. Now it's interesting. If you look at the financial statements for the majority of people in America or even across the world, the way it looks is you make money, you pay taxes, you spend money, and then you wonder where all your money went.
Literally.
And so people, the majority of people don't have any plan for their money. And that's why the majority of people have little to no savings, and the majority of Americans have little to no investments. Right now, about half of America has 0 investments. And I'm talking about 0 401k, 0 IRA, 0 stock market accounts, 0 real estate investments, 0 gold investments, nothing. And then out of the next half of Americans that have an investment, only half of those have an investment outside of their 401k or IRA. So you have a very small percent, about a quarter of America, working America, that has any investments on their own. When you go back to the saving and spending, we're in a spending culture. America has a consumerism culture, and I joke about this, but the way I like to say it is traditionally Indian people make $1 to spend 20 cents. American people make $1 to spend $2.
Yeah.
Thanks to the help of credit lines of credit. This is just the culture that we're in, where it's very okay and normalized to spend money even if you can't afford something.
You don't have it.
And what are you doing? Well, you're spending all your money making everybody else around you rich, but you yourself, you might look rich, but you're actually broke. There's a reason why the owner and CEO of Louis Vuitton is the richest person in the world, whereas the majority of people who wear Louis Vuitton are broke. The people who are wearing Louis Vuitton are trying to look rich, and how are you doing that? Well, you're making the owner of Louis Vuitton rich by doing that. And so this is where you got to understand, there's nothing wrong with wearing designer stuff. There's nothing wrong with having nice stuff. There's nothing wrong with wanting nice things, but you have to be able to afford it first. I used to guest teach in Detroit public schools. And when I used to teach there, it's a rough school district. I would talk to the kids about life, you know, motivation and entrepreneurship and money and success. And one of the things that I would ask is, how many of you have a job? Almost all of them raised their hand saying that they had a job. My next follow-up question was, how many of you have a bank account? Nobody raised their hand. So I asked, you know, what do you do with your paycheck? They said, well, we get a physical check, then we go to the liquor store, we get it cashed. The liquor store owner takes 1 to 10%. Then you buy pop, candy, a bunch of junk on the way out. And by the time you're out of the store, you've already given away half of your paycheck. I call it a net zero thinking, where we think in terms of spending. If I have $1,000, I can go out and buy this handbag, this nice thing. If I have 10 grand, I can go on this nice vacation. If I have 50 grand, I can go on and buy this nice car. We think in terms of spending because we think, if I have this money, how can I spend it? Now, if you break away from that and now you start creating a buffer and you don't spend all of your money, the next problem is we save our money. Because for me, the only financial education that I was given was save your money. Because if you're not spending it, now you are building up a big bank account. And if you have a big bank account, you'll be wealthy. But the reality is you will never be able to become wealthy through your savings. Your savings will never make you wealthy. And if you don't believe me, I'll give you just a mathematical term. Your savings right now are growing by essentially nothing, but let's just say 1%. And I'm being very, very generous here. If your savings grow by 1%, and inflation is higher than 1%, and we can see now inflation is extremely high, but even before the 2020 pandemic, inflation was still higher than 1%. We were 2 or 3%. Inflation means that the value of your savings are dropping. So if inflation is higher than your savings, that means that your savings are losing value each and every day. Every day that you save your money in the bank, you are slowly becoming poorer each and every day, and most of us never see it happen. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't save any money. This just means you have to understand how to save your money strategically, because wealthy people do not want to save all their money. They want to save their money for an emergency, they save their money for an investment, or they save their money for a big purchase. If it doesn't fall into one of those three things, you don't want to save your money, because now you're saving money. Your savings are just making you poorer each and every day. This brings me to then the second aspect, which is blindly following and trusting the system. And this one was the most difficult one for me, because growing up, most of us, myself included, are always told that if you want to become successful, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, climb the corporate ladder. For me, it was go to school, get good grades, get into medical school, become a doctor. I know you've heard similar stories before.
Yeah.
That was all that I was told. Since I was like a little baby, my parents would tell everybody, Jasprit is going to become a doctor. He's going to go out and do medicine, this and that. And that's what I was always told. And I was not really against it, because I wanted to be successful. I saw how hard my parents worked. Since I was a kid, I always wanted to give back. And I always assumed that, okay, if I got good grades, I'll get into a good medical school. And if I do good in medical school, I'll be able to get a good job as a doctor. And if I get a good job as a doctor, I'll be able to make more money. I thought it was all just linearly correlated.
Yeah.
Your grades, your income, your grades, your success. That was one of the reasons why growing up, anything that was not medical or academic related, it was completely discouraged. And sometimes I think it's very difficult for someone to understand what does it mean that, like, you know, your parents really wanted you to be a doctor, because it wasn't like an option. Like, this was the only option. And I think the best example that I can give of that was when I was in 8th grade. I was like, 12 years old. My parents got me a tutor, not for the English class that I was on the verge of failing, not for the other stuff that I was studying for in 8th grade, but for the medical college admission test. The test you take in college to get into medical school, my parents got me a tutor for when I was in 12th grade. We didn't spend money on a lot of things. The only thing that parents were willing to spend money on were things related to academics to get me into medical school. And so here I am in 12th grade. I have an MCAT tutor coming to my house, and he's like, wait, this is the kid that I'm teaching about medical school to get him into medical school? And like, that's how strict it was in my house. So I was checking all the boxes. I was doing good in school. I was studying hard. I was getting good grades. But then along the way, I realized that something wasn't adding up. When I was in high school, I was working at Indian weddings. I was playing a drum called the Dol. And I got to meet a lot of the local Indian DJs that work at Indian weddings. And we became friends. And they would say, you have a lot of friends in high school. How about we start hosting teen parties in high school? Now, I couldn't tell my parents this because, again, anything that's not, medicine related, going to get me into medical school, I can't tell them. So I would do this all on the side. Even going to work at weddings, I had to kind of keep it all secret. And I was like, okay, let's do it. It was fun for me. So I was 16 years old and I started hosting these teen parties at a local restaurant that just opened up, and they wanted some exposure. So they let us do it there for free. And it was fun. But then I was like, I know this is a hobby. I'm going to go to college and I'm going to become a doctor, and this is all going to become history. Well, I go to college. I'm 17. I don't know what to expect because my parents didn't go to university here. And I think that everybody goes to college. They spend their Friday nights in the chemistry lab. They all want to become this big thing, and they want to spend all their time studying in college. And I get there and everybody is partying, drinking, blowing money they don't have on all this stuff. Like, I don't party, I don't drink, I never drank, I didn't smoke. So for me, it was like a big shock. And I was like, this is weird. Like, this is not what I expected, but I still need something to do on Friday nights. So that entrepreneur side of my brain kicked in again. It was like, yo, let's bring this party business back to college, because that's all I knew. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'm 17. I start knocking on the doors of all the clubs, venues, bars, restaurants, asking if I can host party here. And again, I'm not a party person. I don't drink, I don't smoke, but this was the only hustle that I knew. And, I just didn't know much else. So eventually I found a club that would work with me, and they didn't want to charge me anything. They will let me work on essentially a commission basis, that they'll take a percentage of the revenue that I bring in. And I said, okay, it doesn't cost me any money because I didn't have a lot of money. I started hosting these parties, but I still knew that this was just a hobby, something I'm doing because I was bored on weekends. Then I started studying to go into medical school. And this is where things really shifted, because I had some cash saved up in the bank. And now this is like the bottom of the 2008 crash, because I was in high school when the 2008 crash happened. Around 2012 was when I was studying for the MCAT. So real estate prices are at rock bottom, and the markets are still really shaky. And I'm starting to study for the MCAT, and I am bored out of my mind trying to study for this because I just wasn't very passionate about it. And so during my breaks, I would read business books, and I would go on the Yahoo Finance, and I would study what's going on in the markets just for fun. And I kept hearing about how real estate is at rock bottom on the news. And the business books that I read always said that wealthy people invested in real estate. I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know any real estate investors. I didn't know what real estate investing was. I didn't have investor people in my family, so I didn't know what that meant. So I was like, well, if wealthy people invest in real estate, maybe I should invest in real estate. So I brought up the idea to my dad. I was like, Dad, I want to invest in real estate. He's like, shut up. You're stupid. Go study and become a doctor. You can worry about all this other stuff after you become a doctor. I was like, okay. Now, I just want to say, I love my dad to death. My parents, this was just all they knew. They didn't have that financial education. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, okay, what can I do? Maybe I don't got to tell my parents. I'll just do something else. I had a little bit of cash saved up in the bank from the party business that I was running. So I started looking at rental properties to buy. And I found this small condo on sale for $8,400. That was the price of the condo.
That's wow.
And that same condo a few years prior had sold for $150,000. So the 2008 crash really decimated the real estate market in Michigan, because Ford, GM, Chrysler were just hit so hard. And so I was like, okay, well, this is not a bad price. I can afford this. I made an offer for $4,000, and it was in foreclosure. The bank countered with $7,000. And then I said, how about we settle at $6,000? And we were trying to go back and forth. And then they said, well, we have another offer on the table. I didn't want to lose this deal because I'd already looked at a few.
Before we get too lost in one particular person telling us about assets or his assets, we gonna get a definition out here on the table. If you were listening, I'm sorry to cut it off short on you. So let's see. Xavier Prosper. All right, here we go. Let's get a clear cut definition.
If you're sharing a hotel room with friends, you're also sharing a bath.
Put simply, the difference between assets and liabilities is very, very simple. Assets are things that put money in your pocket. Liabilities are things that take money out of your pocket. It's obvious that your goal is to acquire as many assets as possible and as little liabilities as possible. In this video, I'm going to teach you the difference between assets and liabilities in more detail. And then, I'm going to tell you how to acquire more assets and acquire less liabilities. The difference. Assets and liabilities are not to be confused. The definition of an asset is very simple. In financial accounting, it is anything that can be utilized to produce value. And obviously, by value, I mean money. Still, many often miss the difference between the two. Here's a classic example. Is a house an asset? Some think that buying a home is an asset. Unless you plan to sell the property, it is a liability, and a pretty big one. It's going to take money away from you for years to come due to the mortgage, not to talk about all the maintenance costs that you're going to sustain on a monthly basis. That's no putting money in your pocket if you ask me. On the other hand, if you plan to resell the property at a higher price, that can be considered an asset. You can also call assets investments if you pay to acquire. Why? Because investments are anything that can bring a measurable return on an initial payment. For example, acquiring stocks or shares and bonds is acquiring assets because they will generate money for you via dividends, or you can resell them and generate profits through capital gains. We'll explain that later. Is a car an asset? Another interesting one is a car. If you buy a car, the price goes down tremendously the moment you buy it. Used cars are worth extremely less than new cars, so it would be foolish to consider them assets, right? Well, many still discuss this, arguing that since you can later resell the car, you can consider it an asset. In my world, a good asset also needs to generate profit. Something like a car that rapidly depreciates is not to be considered an asset. Whether you sell it 2 hours or 2 years after buying it, you will still not be profitable because you won't sell it for a higher price. Obviously, there are some exceptions. There are historic cars or collectible cars that can raise in value. We're not talking about those rare cases. We're talking about what most people buy, which is a day-to-day car to drive for personal purposes. Difference between tangible and intangible assets. This one is very easy. Tangible assets are physical. You can touch and interact with them. Some examples are land, property, equipment, cash, inventory, and so on. Intangible assets are assets that you cannot touch. They aren't physical. Some examples are brands, patents, copyrights, and so on. Financial versus real assets. Those are often confused and not separated. People just lump together real and financial and tangible assets like they're the same thing and bring the same profit. But that's not how it works in reality. Simply put, real assets have an intrinsic value. The intrinsic value is the real value of an asset without any market influence, which is why they're called real assets. Financial assets use the market trading price to define their value, which means you could more easily end up paying for something more than it's actually worth, which isn't good because you'll lose money. Which is also why people like Warren Buffett talk a lot about finding out the intrinsic value of a company, so that you know if a stock costs more than its real value. If the market price is lower than the intrinsic value, you will very likely find a profit in the future when the market price will come close to or exceed intrinsic value. Financial assets, on the other hand, derive their value from contractual claims. Two examples are stocks and bonds, which I will explain shortly, and they're considered tangible assets. Amongst them, financial assets are easier to convert into cash. Assets like real estate and commodities are harder to cash in on. The mother of all assets, stocks. If you don't know how they work, I'm going to make it so simple that you're 100% going to understand them by the end of this video. Stocks are the most well-known assets, and they have huge potential for those that know how to invest in them. What are they? Stocks, also called shares, are a fraction of a company. When you buy a stock, you basically buy a very small percentage of that company. Imagine having a house, and you can come and buy one brick. You're entitled to that brick, and you're part of the household because you own that brick. Now, why in the world would you want to own a brick? Give me a minute and I'll get there. First, I need you to understand that when you buy a stock, you're basically becoming an associate to that company. If you own enough shares, which means you own a bigger slice of the company, you could also have voting rights when the company makes important decisions. 2 ways to make money with stocks. There are 2 ways mainly to make a profit with stocks. The first, which is the most common, is capital gain. This means that you buy a stock and you wait for its price to go up and then you sell it. For example, you might buy a stock for $5 and then sell it for $7. You would make a profit of $2 and you're good to go. Do prices only go up? No, they fluctuate. That's what all the graphs represent. Prices can go up and down depending on demand and supply of the market. The more demand a stock has, the more it will cost. So if you think that a stock will grow in demand in the future, you should buy it because it's going to rise in value, which means you will be able to sell it for a higher price. However, you should be careful. If your predictions are wrong and the price doesn't go up but down, you will lose money. Many consider this a gamble, but if you know what you're doing and you evaluate the companies that you buy, you should make money most of the time. The second way to make money with stocks is with dividends, which are issued yearly, quarterly, or semi-annually, twice a year. Dividends are the equivalent of your ownership in that company. Back to the brick example. If you buy 1 brick out of 100, you will get 1% of the profits of that house. Make sense so far? How do you acquire stocks? The easiest way to do this is to open an investing account through an online stockbroker. Your bank also probably offers these services, so you might be able to invest old school with your bank directly. Fees apply in both cases, so every transaction is regulated and taxed. You could also buy directly from the company, but that is much harder. It takes time and a lot of capital. Real estate. Property is another asset in certain cases. I say in certain cases because, as I said earlier, owning a home to live in for the rest of your life without the intent of selling it is not an asset. It's an expense. But then there are real estate investors who invest in underpriced property to resell or rent it. Then it becomes an asset. This one is very simple in theory, but it's a whole other story when it comes to practice. Here's how it works. As a real estate guy, you start your day with looking for interesting deals. You look for underpriced properties. What does underpriced mean? It means that you're looking for something that has a lot of potential, but that has been mismanaged for a while. So it might have some issues to fix, which is why the price is low. You're going to fix those issues and resell the property at a higher price. By fixing issues, I mean doing anything that will bring up the price of the property, like remodernizing it, repainting it, or adding furniture. There are a lot of factors that influence the price of a property. It's not just about how it's been managed. Things like timing, location, neighborhood, economic indicators, and interest rates are just a few examples. Or instead of reselling the property, you could rent it after fixing it. This will ensure some extra cash coming in every month. There are multiple types of property: residential, industrial, raw land, commercial, special use. But realistically, you probably don't have the money or the confidence and knowledge to buy and rent or sell property. You probably don't even know where to look. Does that mean you can't start acquiring these types of assets? Well, first of all, you could always learn how to do it. Another option is you could purchase REITs, real estate investment trusts. With REITs, you wouldn't need all the knowledge. You would just trust a company to invest your money in real estate, and they would give you a dividend in exchange for your investment. Many claim that those are great assets, since they provide high dividend yields and long-term appreciation, aka the prices go up and you resist inflation. Is knowledge an asset? Knowledge is in fact an intangible asset. The reason it's considered an asset is pretty simple. Let's pretend that you own a marketing company. What you do is pretty simple. You help businesses find more clients through internet marketing. You figure out everything from marketing strategies to approach and copy. You, as the founder of this successful business, can't do everything by yourself, so you need to delegate. First, you hire an accountant and a financial advisor to take care of that side of business. Then you start hiring content creators. You need them in order to create the content that's going to be marketed. Then you need to hire good salespeople to find even more clients for your company. They're supposed to take on leads and convert them into buyers. Now, the better the salespeople you hire, the more clients you'll close, the more money you'll make. See where I'm going with this? If you invest into hiring talented people that know how to sell, their knowledge is an asset. It simply becomes something you're going to leverage to make more money. Also, the return on your investment is absolutely measurable, since you can easily calculate how much you spend on a monthly basis, or commission, per sales guy, and the value of their knowledge is defined by how much money they bring in. How does this apply to you? It's unlikely that you have a company that needs to hire people, so here's the thing. You can become the asset. If you learn a valuable skill that you know entrepreneurs need to grow their business. Learning is key, and the better your knowledge becomes, the more you'll be paid for it. Now you need to watch this. How to make money work for you. 10 money secrets you won't learn in school. Well, that's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it and found value in it. If you did, give it a thumbs up and consider sharing it. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and subscribe for more content like this. With that said, have a great day, you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
All right, so that was getting us a definition of what assets and liabilities are. So We are an hour into this thing. Now, let's hear a little bit more layman's terms on this thing.
Extreme flavors? Don't.
Want to get wealthy the way rich people do it? Watch this. 70% of the American economy is based on consumer spending, the true lasting American value. People are spending money they don't have on things they don't need to impress people they don't like. They max out their credit cards and spend the rest of their lives paying 22% interest on something that cost $14.75. And they didn't care too much for it when they got a home in the first place. That's not a good use of debt. That will not make you wealthy, but that's how most people use it. So debt gets a bad rap. But like the brilliant yet diabolical Amy Dunn, debt has some very redeeming qualities when executed correctly. Like you can get richer and wealthier using debt than you can if you don't. But isn't that risky? No, debt isn't risky, but the people using it can be. Because if you mess it up, you'll struggle to get wealthy while you're still young enough to enjoy it. I mean, sure, you can always use the whole compound interest thing to work its miracle, but 75% of your life will be behind you by the time that magic trick pays off. But when you use debt the right way, you can compound assets. And that traditional 40-year plan your parents and grandparents followed can be collapsed into 4 or 5 years. No fooling. I see financial freedom created here all the time at Epic. There's Parker and Corey and Ryan and Mackenzie and Josh and Brad and Tony, Cindy, Enrique, to name just a few. And they all use debt to make it happen. And I'm gonna show you how you can do it too. So here's the deal. When you leverage debt, you get to take a small portion of your own resources to acquire a large portion of someone else's. It's not just about multiplying returns, of which it does, but the purpose and benefits, they go much deeper. Here, watch this. The use of debt empowers the borrower to gain full control of an asset, of which gives the borrower the full benefits of the asset without fully owning it. And those benefits, they can be the revenue, the appreciation, depreciation, and use of the asset. As well, long-term debt positions you on the right side of the economy with regard to transferring ownership from the lender to the borrower through amortization. And when done right, it's the asset itself that does the work to pay down the debt for you, the borrower. And then there's this. The 40-year high inflation that we're experiencing is paying down the debt for you too. You see, the increased revenues, salaries, commissions, and bonuses that you receive in the future due to inflation is gonna make the debt you take on today easier and easier to manage. You see, your income's gonna grow, but your debt payments will not. Governments around the world, they understand this. And then there's Apple and Microsoft. As of the recording of this, 490 of the Fortune 500 companies are leveraging debt to grow their fortunes because they understand this. Rich people understand this. And if you wanna be rich, you deserve to understand it too. Watch this. Our currency, because of inflation, is a depreciating asset. So the rich borrow this depreciating asset to purchase appreciating assets, specifically assets that they can control. And here are 3 controllable assets to consider using debt for first. Number 1, invest in yourself, like through self-education, training, mentors, and/or associations, in the interest of becoming competent in the acquisition, management, and disposition of which asset class you plan to use the debt for. Make yourself better. Make your network better. You can control you. Number 2, invest in your business. With regard to anything that will improve directly or indirectly the revenue and value of your business, and most specifically the profit of your business. You can control your business far more easily than someone else's. And then number 3, invest in real estate. It's the final frontier where the average person has a legitimate shot at creating epic wealth. And that's mostly because of the average person's ability to leverage debt in real estate in a way that they can't in other mainstream investment options. And now I'm gonna show you how this works. And I'm gonna use real estate as the model, but these principles can be applied to other assets as well. So I'm gonna use some simple numbers to keep the math easy, and do your best to not get bogged down into the numbers, but place your focus more on the concept of how the leveraging of debt builds wealth, and builds it much faster than you could without it. As long as you understand the concept, you can then later plug in your own numbers to correlate with your own resources, your own asset class, your own market, and your own financial goals. So here, we have a house valued at $100,000, and you were able to find a motivated seller and acquire the property for $80,000. That's what we show people how to do here at Epic, by the way. And it's not terribly important right now, but if you feel that this is impossible or really difficult to do to buy at a discount like this one, it's not. There are a few different links in the description below to some free Epic trainings that'll show you exactly how to do it. Alrighty, so we're purchasing this $100,000 property for $80,000. We're going to place 20% down, $16,000, and leverage the rest from a bank, $64,000 at say 5% for a traditional 30-year loan, giving us a monthly payment of $344. We now control this property without fully owning it. But the control gives us the right to any revenue the property can produce, the right to any appreciation the property experiences, the right to all of the tax advantages through depreciation, the interest and business deductions, the benefit of the amortization, that's the paying down of the debt, as well as the preservation of our money's value through real estate's hedge against inflation. We get all of that. We leverage debt here to take a small portion of our own resources to acquire a large portion of someone else's. Then next, we go find a tenant that will pay us, say, $1,200 per month to live in the property, and each month we'll collect that rent payment to make our mortgage payment of $344, paying down the debt. That's the amortization at work. So to this point, we have used debt to create income, we use that income to pay off the debt, and we also get to use the tax advantages of real estate to further offset those debt payments. I mean, those tax advantages include the deductions of the cost of borrowing the money, the management costs, the depreciation, and other allowable business costs. I mean, those tax advantages, they add up pretty darn quickly, often to the point where you can show to the government a loss on paper, yet a profit in the bank. And Uncle Sam's gonna give you a big thumbs up for that too. So now, we'll sit on this property for say 3 years. Here's what happens after those 3 years. The national average housing appreciation since 1968 per the National Association of Realtors is 5.4%. Now I know we've experienced much greater appreciation these last couple of years, but I'm gonna keep it really conservative just to show you that the appreciation isn't what real estate is all about. Therefore, timing the market isn't as important as most people think. So let's cut the appreciation down to just 3%, of which would cause the property's value to jump $110,000 after 3 years. And when we add in the 3 years of debt paydown, that gives us a principal paydown of $3,000. And when you factor the original equity with the appreciation and with the principal paydown, all together, that gives us a new equity position of $49,000. Through leveraging debt, we have turned $16,000 into $49,000, a 300% return in 3 years. That's sick, right? You can now leverage that $49,000 of equity into new debt to acquire 3 more of these properties and repeat the process. And in 3 years, do it again into 9 more properties, of which would give you 13 total properties in less than 10 years. So keeping the math simple, you've turned $16,000 into a small $1 million real estate empire with somewhere in the ballpark of $500,000 of equity. The type of returns that would give your financial planner an inferiority complex. And I didn't even factor in the positive cash flow from the rent yet. Now, when you leverage debt is really important, and I'll get to that. Plus, I'm gonna give you 5 different ways to protect yourself from the risks of using debt in just a second. But I can hear your wheels turning, and you're thinking of the countless hypothetical scenarios as to how this would not work. Well, if that's the case, instead consider focusing on the countless hypothetical scenarios as to why it would work. Because it has worked for more people's wealth creation than anything else. I mean, if you've got an alternative plan that's better, go ahead and share with me in the comments below. I wanna know. I mean, if you're happy with what you're doing, keep doing it. But this is how rich people use debt to build wealth. We understand the more debt you have, the more money you can make. The more money you make, the more debt you can get. And it may seem like it starts a little slow, but it snowballs really quickly. So we know what good debt is, why we should use it if we want to become wealthy, where to leverage debt first, and how it works once you begin. So the last point is when. When do you use it? Well, as long as you're borrowing a depreciating asset to acquire an income-producing, appreciating one, I can't think of too many scenarios of when you shouldn't use it. Ultimately, debt creates speed. The more you use it, the faster your wealth and financial independence will grow. Conversely, the same is true. Because I'd be remiss if I didn't mention your losses can be accelerated and magnified as well. Countless people have been ruined by debt because of greed and negligence. It can go both ways. However, understand it's not the debt that is risky. And I'm a big proponent of the idea that a basic real estate education will eliminate most real estate risks. So the real estate isn't really risky either. The reality is people are risky. Contractors are risky, property managers are risky, investors are risky. Debt and real estate, not so much. People like Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman advise their audience to avoid debt altogether in the interest of protecting themselves. But their advice will significantly limit the amount of wealth you will build and greatly extend the amount of time to when you build it, if you do. So you'll be safe with their advice, but you'll struggle most of your life too. So if you've decided you want to get wealthy in a safe way, here are 5 things that you can do. 1, invest in your own financial education. 2, become competent in the operations and management of your asset class. 3, stay involved. 4, buy with equity in place. And before taking ownership, number 5, confirm that the asset will pay you more than the debt will cost you. What did you find most valuable? Let me know below. And who else do you know that needs to see this? When their name comes to mind, please share it with them. Oh, and if you're already subscribed to the channel, I pulled this video out right here special for you to watch next. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
All right. So he just gave us a whole talk and lecture about real estate.
If you're not making $158,000 per
say is that's just one aspect of the assets that you can acquire. Just one. You could be shoes. It don't have to be real estate. It could be shoes. Let's hear another talk real quick because we're coming up on our last 45. So, I say they can be shoes. So let's see what my man say. Because everybody says real estate. Everybody be like real estate, real estate, real estate. No money down, no money down. But what about your 3D printing people who are just buying 3D printers and using them? That's an asset. Excuse me. Let's see something else. How to start your own 3D printing business. There we go. Shout out to Savannah and High Penny over there. I wish you was watching right now, because then this is for you. And all of the crafts that you create, just not specifically a 3D printing company, but just the actual building of whatever asset that is you're gonna create to make your money. Now we saw real estate.
Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're talking about how to start a 3D printing business. Now I started my 3D printing business just a couple years ago, and it's quickly grown to a team of about 11 people. And today I'm sharing with you exactly how I did it, so if you're interested in creating your own business, you can follow the same steps.
Thanks for tuning in.
If you're new here, welcome. My name's Austin. I own Crate3D.com. We're a Canadian-based company. We do 3D printing and 3D design. I literally started the business with an Ender 3, which is just a $200 3D printer, and I've built it up to where it is now. To start a 3D printing business, you do not need a lot of money, just enough time and a lot of effort. Now I've laid everything out in the PowerPoint here that I'll be using. I will also put a link to this PowerPoint in the description. So if you want, you can download it, print it out, etc. It's all 100% free. This is kind of my way of saying thank you to those who have subscribed to the channel so far. So first thing is first, and that is step 1. Like any business, you need to put in the groundwork and you need to learn the fundamentals of the actual business activity and how it works. Basically, you need to learn everything about 3D printing. This is the step where you get a 3D printer, you learn how to use it, how to prepare files and all the different materials and their use cases. Now it does sound like a lot when I say it like that, but honestly, this can be done in just a couple of days, okay? You cannot run a proper business without understanding the operation from the ground ground up. So yes, you need to know the ins and outs of 3D printing and how to use a 3D printer. Now, in addition to learning how to print, learning basic design work is a very, very good idea. And again, it's totally free, okay? There are infinite resources out there, and I will attach some below in the description. But by learning basic design work, you open yourself up to far more clients, and you will have a much bigger competitive advantage over those who don't know basic design work. Now, under design work on the slides, I put learn to design using basic shapes, how to edit existing designs. An example of that would be something like if a customer wanted to put their name on an existing print file, something like that. And then lastly, I put you need to know how to export files for 3D printing. Additionally, there are links on there to the recommended printer that I think you should get if you're just starting out, and also to design software plus tutorials. I highly recommend checking out those two links. But let's keep moving on. So step number 2, this is where we get into service printing and service design. Okay, at this step, you should be able to pretty quickly make back every dollar that you spent on your first 3D printer and that filament. This is where things start to get exciting, okay? You can actually start making money, building clients, gaining experience, building a portfolio, all of those really good things. However, this is also where you learn to troubleshoot, okay? You're gonna have failed prints, things like delays in getting material. You're gonna deal with annoying clients, shipping issues, etc., etc. This is where you learn the process of business. So how do you get 3D printing service clients? Okay, here are a few ways, and I have mentioned these before. I also recommend that you do watch my first video on this subject. I'll put a link to it on the screen now. Open that in a new tab and watch it after this. But basically, for 3D printing service jobs, the best ways that I recommend are, number 1, Facebook Marketplace. Create a simple listing for 3D printing and design services, okay? Number 2, local classifieds. Create an ad on Kijiji, Craigslist, whatever your local classifieds are. Create the ad for 3D printing and 3D design services if you can do both. Number 3, call local businesses, visit them, ask them if they need printing services. Literally any business that uses small plastic parts may be interested, especially if you can do that design work as well. And then finally, I just put ask family and friends. If you know someone who is in the business space, maybe they know someone that they could connect you with and that you could begin doing some work for. Let's keep moving on, okay? Step number 3 is to build a brand. This one's really important, okay? You need a company / a brand. It's 2021, like you can't just be some back alley 3D printing and design guy. You need to look official. You need to grow a brand. The reason for this is, well, there's tons of them, but first off, it'll help you in finding clients, it'll help you maintaining clients, closing deals, networking, and frankly, you can just charge a lot more for your services if you look professional. Which brings us to Wix, okay? The sponsor of this video is Wix. You guys know I do not take a lot of sponsorships on this channel, but when Wix reached out, my company website, crate3d.com, for years, long before I even started on YouTube, was built by me and made using Wix. So it just felt right, and honestly, I can wholeheartedly recommend Wix. I'm gonna be showing you my initial website that I used when I was just starting out, and then also the website that we currently use at crate3d.com today. But before we jump into the web builder, let's bring up my slides on step number 3. Okay, so why do you need a brand / a website? Number 1, this is all specific just to 3D printing, and that is portfolio, okay? This may be the most important of them all, but you need to be taking photos of the work that you do because this will help attract other clients, okay? Every project you do, no matter how big, no matter how small, just take some photos of it. If it's design work, take some screenshots or some videos. It is fantastic marketing material that we can put on our website. I promise that is something that you will not regret. Number 2 is to show what services you offer, okay? If you offer 3D printing services, maybe you offer 3D printing plus design services, maybe you offer 3D printing plus design plus painting services, whatever it is, your potential clients need to know exactly what you offer so that they know their options when picking your services, okay? Number 3 is to separate yourself from the competition, okay? If you get inquiries through something like Facebook, Instagram, Craigslist, etc., being able to say, hey, I own company X, this is our website, this is where you can see the work that we've done, and this is what we offer, like that is just a huge advantage against just being some random guy. Okay, number 4 is to attract professional clients, okay? Professional clients being companies, corporations, other businesses, etc. They all typically have way higher budgets than do individuals, and they may require repeat business. That one's pretty straightforward, and it is really important. Number 5 is organic traffic. Let's say that you live in like Houston and someone needs something designed or printed. What are they gonna do? They're probably gonna open up their computer, they're gonna go to google.com, and they're gonna type in 3D printing service Houston. Well, if you have a website, now your website might pop up for that search and they may inquire through your website. That one's also pretty straightforward. Number 6 is credibility. This kind of ties in with being more professional, but you can actually use your website to build credibility through things like reviews, testimonies, list of companies, list of company names and logos that you've done work with, people that you've done work with in the past, etc. All of those things. Okay, and the best part about this is that you can do this right now too. Go ahead, click the link in the description or the link in the slideshow if you did download that. But let me just quickly show you exactly how easy it is to set this up. So I'm on my Wix dashboard right here. I'm gonna go ahead and click on select and edit site. Now this is indeed my company website. You may have already seen this before, but from there I'm gonna go ahead, edit site, and what we're gonna do is we're just gonna add in a portfolio page. The reason that this is so powerful and the best features of Wix is that you can make changes on the fly with absolutely no web development experience. And what this means for us as new company owners or new brand owners to 3D printing is that we can make those changes, such as something like adding new items to your portfolio or adding the companies that you've worked with, things like that. So right off the bat, I can go click the pages at the top there, manage pages. Let's add a page. Let's just do a blank page. We'll keep it super simple for right now. And let's just call this portfolio. So there we go, we have portfolio, and you can see that it automatically added it up here in the top bar as well. And what we're gonna do, let's say that we took a picture of something that we had just 3D printed, add button, and then you'll see all of the different elements that you can add. Now you can make it fancy or make it themed, but for now, let's just go ahead and let's just add image. I'm gonna click on my images and then site files. I've already uploaded this here, and this is just a simple plastic stand that we print. So from here, you can see I could just
I
go.
don't want y'all to sit here and think we just learning about 3D printing. We ain't learning about 3D printing, all right? So check it out. And shout out to Quan, shout out to Neffy, shout out to Amber for joining. Listen, what we talking about here today is assets and liabilities. How are you increasing your assets? How are you using your assets? Do you even know what an asset is? And the reason we landed here on this video is because I'm trying to get away from just saying assets are real estate ventures or like a building you own or something like that. Assets can be whatever is bringing you value into your life. Now, let's look at somebody who has the 3D printing company. That's why I went for 3D printing. Their assets would be stuff like the materials they use in the 3D print, the 3D printer itself, and that's not a building. You see what I'm saying? 3D printer, you can chuck that shit out the window. Excuse me. So you see what I'm saying? So let's start looking at these things differently so that we can start gathering actual assets for our lives. All right. So that's why we was looking at the 3D printing tutorial or whatever. So we're gonna run this thing up one last time for y'all, and we gonna, since it's Friday, I want to bust your head open on some financial stuff. So we're gonna go over here to my man's and see what he got to say. Because I build wealth for myself, but it's internal. And now that I done sat here for this Friday and listened to some of the speakers that I listened to, I'm looking at money differently. And I feel like I'm changing just from looking at it different. Well, not I feel like I'm changing. I'm changing just because I'm looking at it differently. And I feel like I'm in a better place for myself than I thought I was when I give that outlook on it. But all right, check it out. Here we go.
In 68, it was a police riot. They didn't say police rebellion. A black PhD right now, driving down the street in Washington, D.C., $1 billion in the bank.
Don't start skipping on me.
A black PhD right now, driving down the street in Washington, D.C., with $1 billion in the bank. 5 PhDs. He hear a squad car, and he squeezed the steering wheel tight. Nobody told him that. That's in his blood. And then when the car passed, he said, thank God, God had nothing to do with it. They wasn't after you in the first place. You have to look way into it, I missed it all coming up. My mother, gave me everything a child would want. See, when I was born, we didn't have welfare. Everything a child would want for Christmas. They told me a white man brought it to me.
So we sit here, you and I, you're 81 years old. You've been a public person for most of that time.
Yes.
And you are not a liberated man?
Not at all. No, you can't get liberated with money. That comes from inside. They convinced me that all black women are ugly. That's okay? They convinced black women that all black women are ugly. The only woman on the planet, a black American woman, go to a place called a beauty parlor. All the rest of them hair salons, beauty parlor. They teach me something's wrong with my hair. My hair didn't come from Sears and Roebuck. It came from the same God that put the universe together, and yet you hear black folks say, oh, she got good hair, she got bad hair. God in the business of making something bad?
But haven't we shaken some of that off? I don't hear people talk the way I did when I was a kid about good hair and bad hair.
When I was born, they was changing a black person's dollar for 49 cents. Now they give me 98 cents. I don't want 98 cents for $1. I want a full dollar's change for $1, or this cash register will never ring again. You know, you got black folks so ashamed of ride, they call it rebellion. It's not no damn rebellion. A rebellion ain't something you have after a cop shoots somebody. A rebellion is planned. You know the day it's gonna start. This is a ride. In Chicago in 1968, it was a police ride. They didn't say police rebellion. A black father, I have 3 boys. I never taught them to behave when you run across an ignorant, racist cop that might kill you. Why? Anytime you teach your child to treat filth nasty, then they think something wrong with them. That's the game. I've never taught my children you have to be twice as smart as white people. See, children don't hear what you mean, they hear what you say. And when you tell them they got to be twice as smart, in their mind, they think they're dumb. That's how it works.
None of what we've been talking about so far is very funny. Yet you were a comic for a long time, and using humor to try to get people to think about these contradictions.
No, don't do that to me.
Oh, what were you doing? You tell me then.
I would never believe you can change things through humor at all. I remember a New York Times reporter asked me in Chicago at a nightclub when I finished, how many of these white folk you think is laughing because they're guilty? You can ask them that. Being black, I know some black folks whiter than white folks are. You stop and think, you know.
You're making a living.
America goes to war, they don't send no comics. They send some folks that barely can read and write. Right? When America decided they wanted to go to outer space, they didn't get some folks that love America. They got scientists. And if this thing is to change, it had to be science. What have this done to your mind? I know who I'm dealing with. A white dude that his own wife, his mother, his daughter, his girlfriend didn't get the right to vote in 1921. If you do that to your mama, my mama better stay in the house. Legally, black folks had a right to vote before white women. Remember, I still think as a Negro, man, unshackled, unfree. You know, and I'm not gonna let nobody make me a hero because they think I'm a hero. I live with me. I know who I am. I'll die for it. But there's certain things I won't do, and that was the money piece. I mean, I made more money at that time than most people, just second only to Frank Sinatra. But I spent it for the movement. When they cut the food stamps off in Mississippi, I carried 70 tons of food there every 2 weeks.
You make it sound straightforward and logical, but you walked away from the dough. You walked away from the applause. You walked away from whatever, the Ed Sullivan Show and all that stuff. You made a choice. You had to at some point say, this is more important to me than all the good things that have been dished out.
If you could feel your hair grow, you'd probably go crazy. Okay? You know, so I had a big farm, Rolls Royce. I lost all of it. Who cares? You know, I grew. It was the movement that changed me.
Okay, tell me how.
Well, as a child, I went to the movie because I just realized the hand I've been dealt in the St. Louis ghetto, that can't come from God. Something's wrong. You know, so I went to the movie and dream. I'd see Clark Gable, long black hair, and every time he'd say something to a woman, he'd shake his hair and flip it back. I damn near broke my neck one night sitting at home trying to flip a nap back, you know. And I said to me, long before I hit, that to be black in America and you hit big with a job or money, you owe yourself X amount of treats just to unmess up your mind. So that's what I did. Before I hit big, I said this, when I realized it was going to be in entertainment. If I don't bring a woman into the nightclub, I'm not leaving with one, okay? That was the law here. And so I had certain things set up before it happened.
I want to bring up optimistic children, but realistic children.
Sure.
So you don't want to tell them the game's rigged and you already lost. So I've tried to temper realism with a belief in the future. It's a tough thing to do.
And I try to temper that knowing what's in your head, you know. You see, the one thing that President Obama should have taught black folks, you know. We were always told, behave yourself, get a good education. He went to the school the white boys go to. Never been to jail. Just as nice and kind, huh? They treat him as bad as they would treat a third grade dropout on death row waiting to be electrocuted. So that would say, don't believe what they're telling you, because it don't work.
So don't play it straight? Don't walk the straight and narrow? Don't be Barack Obama? Is that the bottom line?
No, I'm honest. You know, all my children have been successful, very successful, because I told them the truth. Education ain't nothing, huh? If you think there's a universal God that put the planet together and need a system who hate you to teach you something, then you're in trouble anyway. You know, I had a mother that couldn't come to my graduation because she didn't think her clothes was right and she didn't want to embarrass me. That's that feeling. And lastly, let me say this here. No group of people have ever been negatively go through what we go through, and them same white folks pick us to feed them, take care of their children. They see something in me.
And don't make the mistake that most of your mothers and fathers made. When I wake up in the morning, my prayers, and I thank God I woke up, the Ku Klux Klan woke up this morning.
All right. So I played that because of the opening in which he say money don't liberate you. And you got to find the reason why you want the money. Because that'll give you what your aspect of wealth is. Because I guarantee you the money is just the tool to get you to that next step. So with your assets or your liabilities, define it. Define these things. And I guarantee you'll see a lot more of what's there as opposed to a lot of what's not there. So with that being said, we still got about 20 minutes left, but I got a meeting that I have to do here in about 20 minutes. So I'm gonna cut today's episode short, but I'm gonna play a little bit of. Nah, I'm good. I ain't gonna play nothing in the background, just some background music, and I'm gonna get up out of here. Thank y'all for tuning in with me this week on Expansion Pack. It's always a pleasure to sit here and just, kind of pick through what life is, or reality is, or what's going on in the minds of me and of other people. So as I play the game, of course. So with that being said, this is DGTA TV. I'm gonna tune in with y'all. I'm gonna tap in with y'all later on. Definitely gonna be back here on Monday next week. Same time, same place. Well, no, different place. But we'll get to that when we get there. I'm your host, Dan F. Man. It's been another episode of Expansion Pack. I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here on y'all. Peace out, y'all. I'll see y'all next week.